This is In Character. I'm your host, Gerard Robinson, Vice President for Education at the Advanced Studies in Culture Foundation.
Well, I'm joined by Jeff tonight, who is one of the administrators, and he's going to join me for a one-on-one conversation so we can do a little deeper dive into the great work that he's doing. So, Jeff, welcome to In Character.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, what I remember about you is that you attended the school where you're administrator. You're currently in the school right now because of the time difference, but also because you're a hard worker and you're there doing some great things. So my first question for you is this: what caused you to leave your own classroom to become an administrator?
That's a great question. I spent 17 years in a high school science classroom, loved absolutely every minute of it, and it was truly one of the hardest decisions I've ever made to leave the classroom. But ultimately, I was drawn towards the challenge of building administration, which means there are so many different dynamics that happen, particularly in a small school. I get to worry about transportation. I get to worry about food services. I get to worry about scheduling. I get to worry about all the rest, to really see how much of an impact that can make on a student's life. When a student comes through the door, if we're not taking care of all of that for them and taking that burden that can come with them to school, from hunger to not knowing how they're going to make it home that day, if we can't lift all of that off their shoulders, then they're not going to be able to learn. And I saw it as a golden opportunity to embrace those challenges. Some of the best teachers that I know are phenomenal at their craft simply because they are problem solvers, because they can see in a student what misconceptions they have. They can see what barriers they have, and they can work and navigate around that. And I think administration does much of that same type of work, albeit in a slightly different way.
Absolutely. So what do you do as an administrator to create a culture of learning inside your building, or at times to have it spill over into either cluster or district-wide culture of learning or community of learning?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is we know that lesson planning and understanding the relationships with our students is fundamental and really key to a well-run classroom. And what I mean by that is that we spend the time as classroom teachers to get to know our students, to understand their backgrounds, where they're coming from, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and then we lesson plan around that and create a path to take our students down. Now, lesson plans are valid the day we write them, and probably not after that, because we make changes along the way. But at least we are guided by those. The same needs to be held true for an entire building. Really, I see the classroom as a microscopic school, and if we can treat that classroom the same way that we treat our whole building, then we're going to be much better off. So what do? I work with my teachers as though they are my students. Now, some people take that, taken aback to that, and say, how could you possibly treat your teachers like students? You're not giving them enough respect. And I counter with, well, if you find that offensive, then you're not treating your students the right way. See, students are the most respected individuals in a well-run classroom. And if I'm going to pay my teachers the same level of respect at the building-wide, then I need to treat them like students. I'm going to learn about my teachers. I'm going to learn about the backgrounds. I'm going to learn about the administrators that came before me. I'm going to learn about what their strengths are as instructional practitioners, but I'm also going to learn about their weaknesses in social dynamics, right? And then I'm going to build a lesson plan to help them through that. So I'm going to very intentionally think about almost an IEP for each one of my teachers and allow them to grow and to foster. But along the way, I also got to communicate with my staff what I need as a building principal, what type of growth I have to have in order to be better, and in order to be able to serve them. I am not perfect. Contrary to prior belief, administration school does not teach you everything. They don't give you all the secrets and all the answers any more than maybe our teacher prep programs do. Now, that's not to throw those programs under the bus at all. It's just to say that we are constant learners. And so I've got to lead that, and I've got to be able to show my teachers that I still have to get better at my craft. And I need to learn from my teachers just as much as they might need to learn from me. So the moral of the story is teach, right? That's what a good building does. It focuses on teaching for your teachers, for your custodians, for your staff assistants, your parapros, for everyone in the building. And if everybody understands that learning is the reason why we are all here, not just why our students are here, then that culture can spill over, and you can have a really successful school.
Tell the listening and viewing audience a little bit about your school.
We're a small school. To start off, we're just grades 7 and 8. We're a rural community. You got to drive about 35 miles away to get to the nearest movie theater. So we're small, we're rural, we're agricultural. But what's nice about it is that because we are so small, every teacher knows every student, whether they have them in class or not. Even within our district, there's only about 1,300 students in our entire district, and that's preschool through 12th grade. 1,300 students is many folks is half a high school. So we're a very, very small district, which allows us to do some things culturally within the school setting, a lot of distributed leadership that maybe isn't possible in some other places. And so that really gives us an opportunity to really know each other and really understand our strengths and our weaknesses.
And because you were a student at your school, you had an opportunity to go to school under someone else's leadership. You've returned to the school, and now you're the leader. Talk to us about that experience, and maybe how you're a better leader because you're at a school where you attended.
I have
and tell
privilege.
us what state you're in as well.
Oh, sure. So I'm in Zillah, Washington. Zillah, I said we were small before. Zillah sounds small, and it is, right? Real small school in South Central Washington State. What's really unique about my experience, though, although other people may have had it too, graduate from high school, go on to college, come back to the exact same high school I graduated from. When I started teaching there, we had about 18 teachers on staff, and 17 of them, plus me, those 17 were all my former teachers. So I was teaching alongside my former teachers, and to this day, many of the staff members within the high school, within our district, are the same teachers that were there when I was in school. Yes, many of them are very, very, very seasoned veterans. I guess you could say. Now I tease them all the time about that. But what's unique about that is that I really truly understand from the student's perspective what our teachers are trying to accomplish. Their methods and their techniques may be a little bit different, but their passion for students hasn't changed. And so when I walk into Keikoa Gabriel's classroom, who was one of my former teachers and is still teaching to this day, I can see the same passion and the same fundamental motivators that he was trying to use on his students now that he was using on me. And so I can see that, and I can understand the teacher's perspective in a much different way. What's been great about that is that our school is filled with phenomenal teachers. I got to learn from them then and now. It does make it interesting, though. It took me a little while to call anybody by their first name. It took me a little while to understand that dynamic between, Jeff the student and now Jeff the administrator. So there's a little bit of a change in dynamic there. But again, if you put learning at the forefront, if you put what's best for students at the beginning of every single one of your conversations, then that can happen pretty naturally.
You were recognized for the great work that you were doing in the classroom as a teacher. Walk us through the first time you heard someone say, "Hey, we want to nominate you for X." All the way to the point hearing, by the way, your name to be called.
It was an interesting process. So I was union leadership in my own district. I skipped a meeting, so that means I got to become union president in our small district. Beginning teachers never skip a meeting. You'll end up in charge of it. And the process that we had for school district teacher of the year was that parents and teachers would nominate, and then it'd be reviewed by members of the union leadership as well as the district administration. And pretty early on in my career, I kept throwing my name out of the hat. People would nominate me, and I'm like, "That's great. I've got enough recognition. I don't need it." And then one year, it was time to have the Teacher of the Year nominations for our district. And strangely enough, my superintendent wasn't returning my phone calls. I was the union president, superintendent. We would call each other often, and he, for whatever reason, was ghosting me on this. Would not call me back. Then finally, he calls me back and he goes, "Charbonneau, I know you've been trying to get a hold of me. You're silly. It's you." And I said, "No, it's not me. I don't need this." And he said, "Too bad. We're overriding you. You're now our district Teacher of the Year." So that was great. It was wonderful, and I really thought that it would end there. But then I became nominated for Regional Teacher of the Year, and then State Teacher of the Year. And I remember the State Teacher of the Year ceremony very clearly. Just beforehand, I was telling my superintendent, I'm like, "Hey, there's some amazing teachers here. There's no way it's me." My name got called, and along the way, eventually I'm a U.S. National Teacher of the Year from 2013. In all of it, I know that it wasn't just me. It wasn't just the work that I was doing to the work of a lot of teachers, a lot of administrators, a lot of people putting together really a pretty magical scenario that became the Zillah School District, where we were able to take students on field trips to Yellowstone National Park and the Beartooth Mountains of Montana. We're taking students on experiences up to Mount Rainier, and then doing things with robotics, within my own classrooms. All along the way, I was only successful because administrators allowed me the flexibility and the freedoms to do what I wanted to do in classes. And so whenever I talk about some of the accolades and the awards I got, you have to understand it did not happen in isolation. It was because of some really valuable administration that really helped me out.
For other teachers of the year that I know, they'll take 1 year out of the classroom to support the state. Was that the same for you?
Yeah, in the 2013-2014 school year, I was out of the classroom, serving almost, I guess you could call it almost like an ambassador of education. Went around the United States, traveled to 7 different countries, about 43 different states of the US, a number of conferences, a number of really amazing opportunities. But that allowed me to engage with some folks that were really at the forefront of education policy. I've known 3 of the secretaries of education, worked with union leadership in different places, and helped put on a number of different conferences and whatnot. All of that taught me this, is that when you really peel this all back, we actually do know how to teach every single student. I am firmly convinced that we know how to teach students from all backgrounds, from all abilities, from all grade levels. We know how to do it. Unfortunately, we are making some fundamental choices in different places, either to actively not do it, or we're putting up some barriers to prevent it from happening. And so that's one of the reasons why I went into administration and gave up a job, a teaching career that I'm incredibly passionate about still to this day, but want to make sure that those barriers are removed, because we can and we need to teach every single one of our kids. It has to happen.
We tend to look, and you're on the West Coast, so either across the Pacific Ocean, I'm in Virginia, the Atlantic Ocean, we're always often trying to send our ideas out on what works. From your international travel, I know there's a lot of experiences you thought were really great. What's one you want to share with us about leadership from an administrative perspective that you saw somewhere else that you're implementing now, or maybe something we should think about nationally?
I think there's a lot of things. I had the opportunity to go to China and was experiencing some classrooms over there. And for everything that we talk about, the stereotypes and differences in education models from one country to the next and the way one country does something, you know what I saw? I saw some incredibly motivated students. I saw some students who knew the answers. I saw some students who were building some amazing robotics contraptions, I guess you could say, not full robots, but some pretty cool mechanical devices. And I was in awe. And then I looked around the room a little bit more, and then I saw a student on the side sleeping a little bit. I saw another student disengaged, and I saw another student bored, and I said, aha, see, all of our students are the same. Okay, and all of our education programs have our barriers, and they all have our issues that have to be overcome. There is no such thing as a perfect education system. And that's when I was there. I was specifically asked by the Prime Minister of Education, by the Chinese government, how they can do better at teaching creativity in the American way. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, wait a minute, based on all of the international test scores and all the rest, I should be coming to you to ask for the answers from some of the areas of your country that outperform ours. Same thing, I went to the International Summit on the Teaching Profession in Berlin, Germany. Same scenario. Every one of our countries is trying to deal with things like motivation, with things like helping students to understand their place in the world and understand what types of jobs and what types of motivators are going to be the most important. So none of us really have this all figured out. That's really kind of the takeaway. And yet, we all have pieces of the answers, right? And if we would just work a little bit better together in putting those pieces together, we will be able to teach every single one of our kids. So no, I don't think that we are behind other countries educationally. No, I don't think we're far ahead of them either. I think we're doing a phenomenal job. And I think if we band together just a little bit more, we're going to be able to promote education for all students across the world. That's really the crux of it.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for sharing your words of wisdom, for your commitment to education, for being a homegrown Jim, because often the homegrowns leave and don't come back. I think I'm one of those people, so it's always good to see someone who can. You know, in character, we're always glad to support leaders, and thank you again for joining us.
Thank you again for what you're doing to bring this type of programming to teachers and educators everywhere. I think it's incredibly powerful, and I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.